Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. I just got back from seeing Silence of the Lambs. It was the 30th anniversary. Yeah, 30th anniversary. Got released at my local theater. This isn't gonna be as long as a review as Halloween Kills, because like everybody's seen it. Everybody's seen Silence of the Lambs. So I'm not gonna go that much into like spoilers or anything like too specific about it. So let's just get started. The story was great. The story about Clarice Starling, like basically being a trainee in the FBI and trying to catch this serial killer Buffalo Bill. It was really great. It really weaved Dr. Hannibal Lecter in very well, so that it doesn't really feel like he's a background character, because Anthony Hopkins does get second billing in the film. Um, but even though he's not like the main villain of this movie in particular, it's still great that he played a really prominent role. I haven't seen Hannibal, the sequel to that one. I heard it was bad. I don't really have any intention on seeing that one. I actually never really planned on seeing Silence of the Lambs either, as weird as that sounds, because I love horror films. I love thriller films, which I consider Silence of the Lambs like more of a detective thriller than like out and out horror. But I finally ended up seeing it for the first time like last year or so. And then I saw Red Dragon shortly afterwards. I ended up liking Silence of the Lambs much better than Red Dragon. Um, but that was the first time I saw Silence of the Lambs. The second time was tonight, and after seeing it a second time, I was able to pick up on a few things, like little ticks with the directing and the camera work. Like before the movie started, um, there was this like behind the scenes, like interview or whoever, where this guy in a suit came in and was talking about how like the director had these. They made sure to like film close-ups as much as they can, like for Dr. Lecter, for Clarice, for the character Jack Crawford, for Buffalo Bill, for pretty much everybody. And they did it in a way to make it like more personal and more intimate with the audience. And I never really picked up on that during the first time I watched the film, but now when I was watching it in the theater, like I can't I couldn't really like not notice it anymore, because it's there in pretty much every single scene of the film. So that was a nice little detail that uh, that I finally realized. Uh, the whole the whole plot um, and how like normally in horror films it's fairly isolated to, like, say in Halloween the plot is more or less isolated in Haddonfield, or Nightmare on Elm Street where it's isolated in Springwood, or Friday the 13th where it really just takes place in Camp Crystal Lake until they decide to bring him into New York. Um, like this movie does it completely different, where it almost feels like a road trip where they go from Vancouver, I think, to West Virginia to Ohio, and there's even a scene that I'm pretty sure takes place in Chicago. But they kind of go like all around the map. Oh, and they're also in Baltimore quite a bit, because that's where Hannibal Lecter is being held prisoner. Um, there is they do bring him into Tennessee, I think, for the final act of the film. But my point is, it kind of feels a bit like a road trip, movie where they're just going to like all these different places in America in order to like catch the main villain, the main bad guy, Buffalo Bill. And I always thought that was pretty cool because horror thriller movies, they don't usually do that. They're almost always isolated. Like, you don't see the FBI or the CIA going after Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees, at least not until the final Friday. But that was always pretty cool. The acting was fantastic. Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins played their roles spectacularly. It was really great how they were able to actually make Hannibal Lecter like intimidating and like cerebral, because if I'm right, Anthony Hopkins, like he's not really built like Kane Hodder or James Jude Courtney, the guy who's currently playing a Michael Myers now. So if like you see him walking up to you, you won't really feel intimidated by him. Like if I'm correct, Anthony Hopkins is about my height, and I'm not intimidating. So it was pretty cool that that they did a ton of close-up shots with Hannibal Lecter, where I think there's only 1 or 2 scenes where they actually show like his legs or the waist down, but it's only for just a few seconds, so you don't actually get like a full like image of his height. But onto Anthony Hopkins' acting himself, like his performance was pretty chilling, especially when he does that thing with his teeth, like the hissing noise. I can't do it, but I remember hearing that he did that unscripted just to get under Jodie Foster's skin, because I heard from somewhere that she completely hated that noise. So he just added that into his acting, like just to really screw her up, just to really mess with her head. Aside from those two, there's really not much else that I can really say about the other actors. Like the guy who played Buffalo Bill did a pretty good job. There wasn't really anything that I could take away from it. The same can be said for Jack Crawford and Frederick Chilton, and pretty much every other actor and actress in there. The person who did play Catherine did a pretty good job in like sounding terrified with being locked up in that well. But other than that, like there's not very much else I could really get from the acting. They did have this like underlying theme throughout the film about Clarice facing like sexism and discrimination while like being a woman in that job. Although I didn't really feel like it was like in your face, like how modern movies are these days. And like no matter what movie you see, whether it's like a horror film or like movies in the MCU, like they beat you over the head with that message. And while that message is there in the movie Silence of the Lambs, I feel like they weaved it well into the narrative, and it was more or less subtle. Like that wasn't the main focus of the film. The main focus was capturing Buffalo Bill. There's really only two things that I had there's really only two problems that I had with the movie. One of them is completely subjective, but I'll get to that in a minute. But the first thing that I had was I can never really understand how Hannibal was able to get to Dr. Chilton's pen that provided him the means to free himself from that prison in Tennessee. And I get that earlier in the film, like Chilton set the pen down in his bed, and he must have forgot about it. But I still don't understand how Hannibal was able to get a hold of it in the first place, because at that point he was like completely in a straitjacket and wearing like that kind of muzzle mask to keep him from biting people. So I just don't understand how he was able to get to that pen when he was not only in a straitjacket, but he was also like strapped to that gurney thing. No, not exactly a gurney. I want to say a dolly, but I'm not. I don't know. He was strapped to something in addition to that straitjacket, so he should have had like no chance to move at all. And throughout that scene, and then the next scene where he talks with that U.S. senator, not once did they ever like give a clue that he somehow was able to get out of his restraints, even for a moment. So there's that little problem I had with the film, and maybe they did explain later on how he was able to get free of his restraints, but maybe I'll have to watch it a third time. And then the second issue that I have, which I've talked about this before, the most recent time was when I mentioned it in my Halloween Kills review, and this is entirely subjective. It's my own personal preference, but I will still gladly say that I'm willing to die on this hill. I do not like that there were a few shots that where you were seeing like through Buffalo Bill's point of view, and I get that they were showing like that whole night vision effect, and I did like the whole night vision sequence, especially towards the end. But no, it's actually inspired me to like shoot my own little video where I add like a little night vision effect to the entire kind of video. But having said that, I don't like that it showed that like we're watching through the killer's POV. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. In my opinion, when you are looking through the killer's POV, like, that's basically translating to, like, in that moment, you are the killer. There is absolutely no danger to you whatsoever. Especially during that final sequence where Clarice is in Buffalo Bill's house, he shuts off the lights, he turns on the night vision. The close-ups of him like having the night vision goggles on are fine. I just don't like where you're following his point of view while Clarice is just like shuffling around in the dark, because like you know where Buffalo Bill is, but she doesn't. So you know something that the main character doesn't. So in my opinion, it would have been a lot better if it was just you're like looking through Clarice's point of view, where it's incredibly dark. You can only see like what's directly in front of you, and like maybe fire off a few shots to light up the room just for a second, but then quickly revert it back to darkness. But and I can't stress this enough, I just hate it when you're looking through the killer's point of view, because in my opinion, like you don't really feel a sense of danger, because the killer is in no danger, at least until Clarice turns around and just lights him up like a Christmas tree. I didn't like it in Halloween where they showed you through Michael's POV. I didn't like it in Chucky whenever it would show through the doll's point of view. I still don't like it with his new show going on, and they're still constantly doing it at least 2 or 3 times per episode. And I don't like it here, despite the fact that I like the night vision effect. But once again, that's just my own personal preference. That is entirely subjective. But really, those are all my thoughts. Aside from like everything else was good. The camera work was great. The acting was pretty good, especially from Anthony Hopkins. The soundtrack it wasn't really something to write home about, but it did feel like uplifting at times and chilling at other times when it needed to be. But at the end of the day, those are just my thoughts on this film. When it's all kind of said and done, I'm really glad that I was able to see it in the theater, because so far the theater I go to, they're done doing comeback classics. Mostly because like newer movies are finally coming in; they're no longer being delayed. So this was a real treat after months of not being able to see like some of the old classics. So all in all, it was a great privilege to see this film in theaters, despite the only two problems that I had with it. But what are your guys' thoughts? Did you like Silence of the Lambs? Did you hate it? Um, would you go and see it in the theater if you had the chance? Because I don't know if there are any other theaters out there that will actually play them. But let me know down in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next one.